Ace Bailey is perhaps the most intriguing prospect not named Cooper Flagg in the 2025 NBA draft. His approach to the process caused some media backlash, and the Jazz still took him fifth despite his list of preferred teams. The film shows a rare blend of size and skill that could make him a future star, and today we're going to break down that tape and see if Ace Bailey is the steal of the draft or if he's just a ticking time bomb.
Here's Bailey again, knifing inside.
Jumping right into the film, the first thing that I really want to talk about is his ability to act as a catch-and-shoot threat. So his college career was an interesting one in his 1 year at Rutgers from this perspective, because you look at the stats and you think, okay, it's a guy that shot around 35%, and that's fine for a 6'8" wing, and that translates really well. But then you start to dig a little bit deeper and you realize, man, on guarded looks, which he shot almost 70 guarded catch-and-shoot threes, he shot 43, 44%. Unguarded, he only shot 25%. That's really odd, because as usually you'd expect to see that flip-flopped and you get less unguarded looks. But you watch him shoot and you come away feeling like he could be a really dynamite shooter. I mean, he does an excellent job of getting his feet squared up to the rim. He has a really quick release when he wants to, and I think that it really sets him up to be a knockdown shooter if he can reach his potential. So if his shot selection can stay consistent, I really like this part of his game as it translates to his NBA career. So I want to take a second and talk about Ace Bailey's 1 year at Rutgers. He was part of a two-headed monster there with Dylan Harper, and he did a lot of things well. Averaged about 18 points a game, contributed on the boards. On the defensive end, he was also a standout, and we're going to look at all those parts of his game as we continue to go through the film. So stick around, we'll talk more, all of that and a little bit more. Now, the next part of his game that gets me really excited about him as an NBA prospect is just the sheer athleticism he showed in spurts last year at Rutgers. Now, again, this is a guy who's 6'8", is long and athletic, and he knows how to use it. So you're going to see him primarily on the college level as an off-ball finisher. So you're thinking cuts to the basket, you're looking at lobs in transition, and he does a really good job at that. And it translates very well to the NBA level. What I would love to see more of, frankly, is his ability to break down his man off the dribble, because he shows that at several points throughout this clip package that you're watching right now. And I think that that's an area where he can expand and get a little more comfortable operating with the ball in his hands and blowing by his man, because we'll talk about it more as we talk about him in isolation. But he has the potential and the length to blow by guys with a dribble. And it just seems like on the college level, he didn't do it as much as you would like. But overall, when you watch him operate and his ability to be someone who puts pressure on the rim as well as being someone that's a three-point threat, that lends itself to thinking he can take some steps in his abilities and be a star player. Now, as I watched through his film, there were a couple areas that stood out to me as potential weaknesses when you think about him as an NBA player. And now, first and foremost, I think the lack of assists was a little bit concerning to me. Ace Bailey is someone that spent a ton of time with the ball in his hands throughout the year at Rutgers, and I think he not even averaged, but overall, I think he had about 30 assists on the year, which, I think that's something that you're going to want to see take an uptick, or at least a willingness to look for. And I understand he was playing with Dylan Harper. He was the benefactor of a lot of assists, but at the end of the day, you are looking for him to be able to distribute the ball, be a ball mover in the NBA system as well. And I want to see that throughout his career. I know we saw some in Summer League, so that's a plus, but I do want to see him take that next step. And then also, I think he needs to be a little more decisive with the ball in his hands. We'll talk about that more in this upcoming isolation section. But you look at even how his drives were distributed, and he was someone that was right-hand dominant. So he was driving right probably 70% of the time, would go left about 30, and the shooting splits amongst those two were really disparate as well. So he, shot about 20 to 30 points lower when he went left, and that's something that he's going to need to clean up, because as defenders get more capable on the NBA level, it's something they're going to sit on and take away that right hand as much as possible. You'll see more closeouts, forcing him middle, which is something that you don't see a ton of in college, just because the defenders are just a little less capable. So all in all, I do think there are some parts of his game he can clean up, but we'll see how he makes that adjustment once he gets to the NBA level with the Jazz. Now, Ace Bailey spent a load of time in isolation last year. So when you look at it from a percentage standpoint, it was almost 20% of the possessions he was on the court for on offense ended with him in some kind of ISO spot. and that's 99th percentile. And so it's a double-edged sword, because when I start watching the film, it's not what I expected it to be. A lot of times it ends up with him holding the ball, being a little indecisive, taking a couple jab steps, and putting up a shot. But then you see these other plays mixing, like the one you just saw where he dribbles baseline, gets past a guy and finishes, or he gets to the rim and finishes. And those are all really productive. But I think his overall efficiency slips because there's a lot of indecisiveness in his game. He's relying a lot on his length to go over people and keep them off balance. And it shows a reluctance to put the ball on the floor. And I think when you get to the next level, that's something he's just going to have to grow out of in order to reach his potential and get to that star level spot that we're talking. So overall, I like the skill set, but I'm not sure of the maturity of it right now. Now, the last piece of his college film that I want to talk about has defensive potential at the NBA level. And I think it's relatively established at this point that he can provide some rim protection, and that's part of his game. But I think that the length that he has and showed in college definitely helps him out in playing the passing lanes and being pesky, as a help defender on drives and getting out in transition. And I think that's something that translates fairly well when you start talking about his NBA game. So for me, as I looked at how he can stay on the floor more or get more opportunity as a rookie, this is what I think of it. I think that he's definitely somebody who can make some waves on defense, can be a better than average defender, and that helps him out. So as I start to put together my final thoughts on Ace Bailey and his fit with the Utah Jazz, I think that for them, it just makes so much sense, and I'm glad that they took that risk and invested this draft pick in Ace Bailey. Because when you look at their roster, they have some foundational pieces that I think that they're going to rely on throughout the years. So, you have your Walker Kessler, you have some other pieces that you're interested in, but you don't have anyone else that's cemented as a franchise cornerstone player. And I follow the Hornets pretty closely, and I'm always a proponent of this. But when you're in a smaller market, like say a Salt Lake City, that your free agency acquisitions aren't going to be what they would be in some other markets. You have to take swings and misses like this in the draft. It's necessary. Man, I'm not saying this is going to be a miss, but what I'm saying is it's important that if you have a guy who can be a franchise star, franchise cornerstone level talent that is available to you, especially early in the draft, sometimes you have to take that. That's why at times I was critical of Charlotte this year taking Con Kneppel, just because I see him as a very serviceable, bright NBA future, but I don't know that I see him being somebody who is your franchise star. And granted, Charlotte might not need that as much from a guard position, but Utah could certainly use something on the wing because they have a bunch of bigs. Kyle Filipowski went off in Summer League this year, and I think you're going to want to see what you can build around him. You already have Walker Kessler. There are other guys that I know, Lauri Markkanen as well, that has some pedigree to their NBA game, but you need some pieces that can pair with that on the wing. And the great thing about Ace Bailey is that you have some roster flexibility with him as well. You can play him on the wing. You can play him as a small ball 4 if you wanted to. And I'll be very interested to see how Utah decides to use him and pair him up with some other players. Now, again, I'm going to want to see him be able to be more efficient with the ball in his hands and do a little bit more and be more creative and be more decisive is probably the key word I would use for him. But I think the fit goes together really well. You're pairing him up with some proven pieces, but you're also going to have a lot of room for him to make some mistakes and learn and grow without the pressure of a team that is in a compete or win now or has to see some improvement type of situation. So all in all, I love the pick. I wished I was on the wagon of Hornets taking him when they had the opportunity. But again, I just think that for Utah, it's a can't lose situation because it's a necessary evil of having to take a chance on somebody that can elevate you as a franchise. So Utah fans, now is your time to comment. Let me know where I'm right, where I'm wrong. I love the feedback. I love having discussions in the comment section. So feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what player you think I should do next. I'm still working my way through this 2025 draft class. Probably got about another 7 or 8 that I really want to do, but open to suggestions. Would love you all's feedback on where I should go next. And lastly, I just wanted to end this with a thank you so much for being here. I appreciate everyone being a part of this community. If you feel free to subscribe to this channel, it helps me out a ton, helps you stay up to date with what I'm putting out there. So again, I appreciate each and every person watching this. I hope you got something out of it, and I'll see you on the next one.